Okay, so last class we talked about how all organisms are made of cells, right? Whether it is a unicellular organism like a protist or a multicellular organism made of 1,000 cells like a tardigrade or water bear, or um, a human, which is made of 30 trillion cells. They're all made of cells. Pretty much, if you're not a cell, you're not alive. But there are parts of cells, and those are what is referred to as organelles. You guys probably have studied organelles in the past. You may have forgotten about them. So today is going to be a little bit of review. And I'm just putting these really cool colors underneath the word organelles because I think it looks awesome. Let me get some yellow in there. This is really fun. Man, why didn't I do this before? Cell wall. Okay, so not all cells have a cell wall. Only plants have a cell wall. And a cell wall is the reason that plants can stand up tall. There's a cell membrane inside of that cell wall, but it's pushing with water against the sides, and that's what makes it hard. It's called turgor pressure. What did I write here? Cell wall is only present in plant cells. It sits outside the plasma membrane. It does not select what comes in and out. It gives it support. It's made of wood, cellulose, and provides a wall for turgor pressure, which is what I was just talking about. This is what doctors talk about when they tell you to have a diet full of fiber. Fiber is basically wood. And it's important for you to eat because it allows smooth movement of foods through your intestines. And it also slows down the movement of sugar from your blood into your cells. Let's continue. Okay, so there's an image of a plant cell, which may become interesting later when I give you the assignment. Okay, the nucleus. This is the place where your DNA is sitting, and it can't leave. It houses the genetic material. And I want you guys to know that this and this and these and this, they're all the same thing. They're all DNA. They're all made of DNA. Genes are part of DNA. If this is your DNA, if this is all your DNA, then a gene might be from here to here, like, hey, this is why I have a nose that looks like mom. Or, hey, from here to here is the reason that I'm tall like my dad. Those are genes, and genes are just segments of your DNA. Chromatin is what we call DNA when it's just all squiggly and it's not wrapped up in a chromosome. A chromosome is when you take all this squiggly chromatin and you coil it all up into what we call chromosomes, so that you can see them under a microscope. You can see this under a microscope. You can't see this under a microscope. Let's move on. So nucleus is where your DNA is sitting. The nucleolus. The nucleolus is inside of the nucleus, and this is where you make these fancy things, which you'll find out what those mean. Maybe you know. You might have learned this when you were really young, but it's been a while. Ribosomes is where you make proteins, and the ribosomes are made inside the nucleolus, and the nucleolus is inside the nucleus. The nuclear envelope. This is just a membrane around the nucleus. Okay, it has this fancy word. It's made of a phospholipid bilayer. Really, what you could focus on for now is it's a layer. If this is the nucleus, this thing I just drew, this membrane, this layer is the nuclear envelope, and it's made of. Scientists call it a double phospholipid bilayer. Actually, it shouldn't be double. They call it a phospholipid bilayer, and we'll talk about what that is in another class. Moving on. Ribosomes. We just talked about this. Ribosomes are the place where protein synthesis happens. Okay. Protein synthesis. Synthesis means to make. I just talked about this in my physics class. This word comes up a lot. Synthesis means to make something, and protein synthesis is where you make your proteins. So when you're trying to get like totally ripped, like all buff, so that you could show off at the beach, you need a lot of protein for that to happen. And that protein gets made from amino acids, and you synthesize proteins. And the place that happens at the ribosomes. Cytoplasm. What the heck is that? Is that the stuff left over when ghosts come through your walls and leave a sticky spot on the wall, like in Ghostbusters? No, that's dumb. That has nothing to do with this. Cytoplasm is a clear, gelatinous fluid that's inside of cells. So basically, if this is the cell, and here's your nucleus, and here's your mitochondria, and here's your endoplasmic reticulum, and here's your Golgi apparatus. This stuff that it's all sitting in, that's cytoplasm. The endoplasmic reticulum. The best way to describe this is how we transport proteins around. So those proteins that get made on the ribosomes, they need to get moved. Sometimes they need to be moved within the cell to do a particular job, and sometimes they need to get moved out of the cell to do a job outside of that cell somewhere else in your body. Okay, rough ER. So there's two different kinds of endoplasmic reticulum. Sometimes it looks like spaghetti, and we'll call that smooth endoplasmic reticulum. And then sometimes it looks like spaghetti with Parmesan cheese on it. Not really Parmesan cheese. It has little dots on it. Actually, they look nothing like Parmesan cheese. They look like peppercorns stuck to the endoplasmic reticulum. And those are ribosomes. These little peppercorn-looking things that I first called Parmesan cheese, which was a terrible idea. Also, if you ever see a large plate of endoplasmic reticulum, and even if somebody puts some Parmesan cheese on it, don't eat it because that's gross, man. Okay, so rough ER, rough endoplasmic reticulum, is the one with the dots on it. And why do they call it that? Because it looks rough. Smooth endoplasmic reticulum doesn't have any of that on it. All right, let's move on. Okay, the Golgi apparatus. So this is the place in your cells where you modify those proteins and package them up for shipment. Okay, so you can think of Golgi apparatus kind of like the UPS, right? Those cells, the proteins that were made on the ribosomes that need to be transported out of the cell, they first go to the Golgi apparatus, sometimes called Golgi bodies, where they are packaged to be shipped out, and also sometimes there's a few more modifications that happen at the Golgi apparatus. Vacuoles. These are kind of sacs. Vacuoles are kind of sacs, and they can hold in them food, most often water and some other nutrients. Okay. Plant cells usually have a huge central vacuole, and that's where all the water is stored. When you put water into your plant, when you water your plant and the roots suck up the water moves into the cells, moves into the central vacuole, and that's what gives the cell wall its hardness. Kind of like filling up a tube in your bicycle tire with air. It makes the outside hard. Same is true for watering your plant, where the water goes into the roots, into the vacuoles, and pushes against the sides of the cell wall, making it hard. Okay. By the way, it's really cool if you take some lettuce that's like all wilted and sad looking. Do it. Your parent will think you're like a magician. Take some lettuce, take a head of lettuce, put it on your counter. Let it wilt a little bit. Not too much, because you don't want all the cells to die. But you let it wilt a little bit, and then you can say to your mom, "Don't worry, Mom. I'll use a magic trick that can make this lettuce fresh again." And your mom will say, "What? You don't make any sense." And she'll yell at you and be really mean. And then you take the lettuce and you place it in a bowl of icy cold water. The water will move into the cells and fill those vacuoles up and push the outsides, and your lettuce will become crisp. And then you will be celebrated in your house because you are like a wizard. Maybe. I don't know if that will happen. That's what would happen in my house. All right, lysosomes. So lysosomes, so vacuoles, we said, can have things inside of them, right? It can be water, especially when we're in a plant cell. It can be food and nutrients. It can also be old stuff that the cell isn't going to use anymore, parts of a mitochondria that no longer function, half of a protein that doesn't work anymore. It can be inside of a vacuole, and if that's true, lysozymes are kind of like another vacuole, except they have something inside of them. They have enzymes that can digest the things that are in the vacuole. So if we have like an old protein in here, like it's all sad, just wants to be put out of its misery, the lysosome will connect to the vacuole and inject this enzyme into it, and it will break that down. Interestingly, you know what one of the enzymes that is in these things is? H2O2. You know what that is? The stuff in your medicine cabinet, hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide actually breaks down organic material, and so it's in our lysosomes. All right, I think that's about it. There's a couple of videos here which you're welcome to watch, but I'm not going to actually assign them, and they basically talk about the same thing I just talked about. Your grade for this class will entirely be based on the notes that you just took, which could be handed in as a Google Doc, or if you chose to write them on notebook paper, just take a picture of them with your Chromebook and attach them to this assignment and turn it in. Have a fantastic day.